Benjamin Elijah Mays once said, "I believe everyone was born into the world through something unique and distinct." Our host has been fortunate enough to have opportunities which allowed him to discover and fulfill his unique purpose. Unfortunately, every young person has not had those same opportunities. Expanding how we understand education, building community, impacting and improving lives, promoting HBCUs, and encouraging lifelong learning. Dean Talk brings together a variety of scholars, community and business professionals, along with student leaders to discuss topics which are critical to the improvement of educational equity and equality in America. Welcome to Dean Talk. Now, your host, R. Wayne Woodson.
Good evening, everybody. It has been a while. I know things got away from me. There's been a lot going on from my new preparation for my new magazine launch. So there's a lot going on. So I'm so glad that you all have decided to join us today. Before we get into the interview, just a couple of things. One, follow me on my social media. Everything is now Dr. Woodson 2020. That's my YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So my team wants to make sure that I make you all aware of that. And we have gotten a lot of requests lately for people who are interested in being sponsors. So if you are interested in sponsoring one or both of our shows, reach out to us at info@rwaynewoodson.com, and we will have somebody get back with you. There are a number of ways that you can sponsor, a number of price points, a number of ways that are not even financial that you can assist us. So if you are interested in that, make sure that you let us know. And finally, we are raising money for the Woodson Foundation Scholarship Fund. That says December 31st, but it should say March 30th, I think. So we just need to get that fixed. But we're raising those funds. We are so glad that to date we have helped over 20 students with financial assistance, and we really want to make a bigger impact. So if you visit in rwaynewoodson.com, you'll get more information on that as well. So I am excited today. I have a friend, a brother. We went to school together. He has helped me launch many of my projects over the years. He's done events for me. He's done graphic design. So I am so glad that he took time out of his busy schedule to join us today. His name is Christopher Graddick, and he is with Christopher Marks Design, which is a wonderful event planning and design company here in Georgia. So I am going to bring Chris on. Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm doing well, Dr. Woodson. How are you doing?
I am doing well. You know, the days get away from us. It is Thursday, and I just think Monday was about 5 minutes ago. But I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. So as we begin, share with our viewers, a little bit about your background.
Wow. So first, let me say this is totally unscripted. I don't have any questions, so all of these answers are straight from the heart and off the bat. So hopefully I can answer all these questions justly, truthfully, and it doesn't take me all night to do it. But a little bit about my background. I've been answering this question for all of my life. And I always began at my first vivid memory, and that's touching the piano at the age of 3 or 4, my mother tells me. I remember clearly banging on the piano before I got my first instrument. So as you see behind me, the piano is a very, very special part of me. Throughout my childhood, I performed in church as many Black musicians, as a pianist, vocalist. I've been drawing just as long before I sat down and decided that I wanted to become serious about music, because music and visual arts was just something that comes naturally to me. They're divine divine gifts, and especially music. I was just able to hear things at a young age and just actualize them on the instrument. But throughout childhood, I studied specifically the visual arts. I was in art classes after school in the summertime. I was in art camp, drawing, painting, sculpting, mixed media, folk art, whatever was out there in the arts, I was participating in. It was about around junior or senior year, it was time to apply for college. And I had to make a decision what path I wanted to take. Despite all of my training and experience in the arts, and the resume just looked like I probably should have been at the Savannah School of Art and Design. But I decided that I wanted to be a pediatrician, and I was going to pursue medicine. So I applied to all colleges as a biology student. But in the back of my mind, I said I wanted to make sure that these schools had some type of music connection as well. But none of the music professors at any of the colleges I applied knew that I wanted, that I would eventually become a music major, because I applied as a biology student, and I kind of shot myself in the foot because I wasn't able to compete with the students entering at these caliber universities and colleges with background. However, if I would have really married my first love much earlier, I think I would have been able to market myself a little different. But hopefully we'll be able to tell the story why I pivoted later. But weeks before graduation, I decided that I wanted to be a music major, and I was going to Morehouse, and I was totally vested into becoming a music teacher and opening a fine art school in Middle Georgia. Little did I know until I met Dr. U.C. Brown that Morehouse really can't help me become a music teacher, because, as he stated, we don't prepare music students to be teachers. That's housed at Spelman College. And I was like, okay, Dr. Brown, I still want to be a music teacher. And they heard me, as well as my classmates. They knew that I wanted to be a music teacher. And ironically, a lot of my classmates who were preparing for performance careers are actually the ones still in education. So I was in the classroom for about 5 years. In about 2011, I was teaching at a military prep school, and I decided I want to do more in fine arts leadership. So I started applying for jobs, and everybody was like, no, we can't afford you, or, I was just overqualified and too young. My credentials were not aligning. I was also working on a third degree at the same time. I knew that it wasn't an education thing. I knew it wasn't an experience thing. And I just had to really face that God wanted me to do something else. So I changed paths, and about 2012 and 13, I was really wrestling until I just got tired of being told no. And Christopher Marks Design was started. And I freelanced as a graphic designer for about 10 years. So when I started creating senior recital flyers for my classmates in 2003, I started developing that creative that other creative vein. And actually, when Christopher Marks Design was started in 2013, I was just adding another capability of event planning and design, though I had been designing as a graphic artist for 10 years before that. And kind of fast forward to now, we are pursuing event planning, event design, as well as graphic design full time.
So I never knew that your intention initially was to be a doctor or to go to medical school or that you're a biology major. So I'm learning something new too, because I never knew that.
Yes, I had a very interesting journey through music, serving as a church musician. I started working in the church full time. I was about 12 years old. I was in the 5th grade. My aunt had identified that, I had the ability to lead the music ministry. So she kind of held my hand for about 3 months, and then she just put me out there. So I was choosing music, teaching music, directing rehearsals, directing choirs, doing service every Sunday. When the pastor traveled, I traveled. So I took on a very mature role in music at a very early age. And I laugh at myself because I know how I am now in terms of the philosophies that I carry in doing the work that I do. But I've been like that all of my life. I've just grown in those experiences and those tools and strategies for all the encounters that I had from many, many million brilliant teachers, many, many million brilliant peers, many, many million brilliant students to just influence what I do now. So I just have a very, very extensive, as one of our superintendents called, a bag of tools to pull from.
So we start, and we're going to go to college for biology. We end up doing music. You've done graphic design work for me, so I can certainly speak to the graphic design element. I mean, even driving stuff to Nashville for me. So I can certainly speak to that. But how did we get from that to let me develop an entire design company?
So actually the first opportunity came, and I just kind of made this connection recently. So a year after I graduated from Morehouse in 2004, my brother was murdered almost the week to the date I returned home. And, at first, when I first left Morehouse, and I was like, why am I going back to Macon? Because I know that there's just much more to me to do out there, and to come back to Macon so very soon. I want to go explore and bring these things back to my hometown. But when that happened, I knew that it was necessary for me to be here for my family. So planning my brother's funeral was probably one of the first events that I actually planned unknowingly. I was over the graphics. I selected the whole soundtrack from beginning to when the church was open, all of the music during the service. I identified a music director. He created the band. I chose the singers, the soloists, and it was all laid out. The services, my parents had to do nothing but write the checks because the pre-consultation was held even before they met the funeral director. So that was in 2005. About a year before I officially entered the classroom. In 2013, my sister was married, and she was actually seeking out other people to help her with the planning. Even we're like twins born 3 years apart. I showed her my glasses recently, and she showed me hers, and like, we got the same frames, same style, same shape, everything. So she really trusted me, and that was the next big event. So, as a student, professionally for most of my life, I just did the research, and we did it together. We learned a lot along the way. We made some very integral connections, introductions during that planning process. And I was still on the fence as we were planning this. But as we were planning, I was being bitten by this bug in the industry that I didn't even know that I would be interested in. And as the design opportunities came outside of the regimen of being in a classroom every day, I think I may like this. And I was doing really bad. I was doing really bad. It was a very quiet time in my life. The phone wasn't ringing. It was very humbling because I was not in a foreign place. I was at home. You know, people know you at home. They know what you're capable of. They know your experiences. They know your portfolio. They know your resume. You don't even have to sell yourself. But no one was calling. Nobody needed me. So I was like, it can't be this bad for me to just try to see what it's like to work for myself. And, you know, my mother was one of the first to say, well, you know, Chris, you may need to create the job that you're looking for. Maybe the job for you or the job that you want does not exist. And I had no idea that she would help to be the midwife for Christopher Marks Design. One of our classmates, Quandrell Claybrooks, actually presented the idea before we graduated. It was like, you're really good at this. You should be an event planner. And I'm looking at Quandrell like, we're in school to do music. I'm going to be a teacher and you're going to perform. And he was like, I don't know. And you know, Quandrell is straight down to earth. And when he believes a thing, he believes. And he was like, well, Chris, I don't care what you say. This is what you should be doing. And I always go back to that because that was almost 10, 11 years before I said yes to Christopher Marks Design. But he saw it before we even graduated. And I said no. Now he's teaching, running a music studio. I don't have time to teach. I do one big music event a year, and I'm doing graphics and events most of the time.
So let's get into this graphic design thing a little bit. I have seen the pictures and videos, and it is amazing. And you know, I have done events. I'm a little old, so I won't say how long I've done it. And I know the thrill you get when it all finally comes together. But what are some of the foundational things that you consider when you are conceptualizing these events? Because, you know, I know often they come to you with some idea, and then it's up to you to create their vision. So what are some of the parts of your thought process when you're doing that?
I did not realize the connection that running an event, running a church, was like a symphony. Being a choral conductor, being a composer, familiar with the orchestration process, you're familiar with conducting, you're familiar with assigning voice parts, and it's so very similar. I am in the process of trademarking the 3-part model that I developed since the inception of the business: plan, design, execute. And I always begin with a plan. So I don't care if we are doing a dinner at a restaurant, or we're planning a high school prom for 300 plus students, or doing a major memorial service with 2,000 plus people. You always start with a plan. And when there's money involved, that includes a budget. Because just like when we're developing philosophies as students, as planners, as professionals, you need a framework, you need boundaries to work within so that you can filter your decisions. Because, you know, technology has just opened a floodgate of inspiration, and it can be overwhelming. You see all of this stuff and you're like, I like that and I like that too. Well, what about that? Well, how much can we spend? Can we afford that? Is that the right color? Is that the right style? So when you are developing a plan to execute, you got to start with those clear boundaries so that you know what you're working with and you know what you're working within. Sometimes the schedule is a boundary. We don't have the time to do something, so we need to modify. Sometimes there are health restrictions, or sometimes there are capacity constrictions. Sometimes they're gathering. gathering restrictions. So it's a whole lot of things that you have to consider when you're developing the plan. So once you have a clear plan, then we can go to the part that a lot of people I know reach out to me about, because they do see the pictures, they see the videos, and they like the glam that is attached, that accompanies the events. But it does not come without a clear plan. So once the plan is solidified, we know what we can and what we can't do. Now we can select the elements. I like to begin with the floor plan. It helps me to know what's in the room, what fits, doesn't fit. I like those details. I like choosing different shapes of tables. Sometimes the event not permit that, so we just go with one table or just a long table. But I like using round tables, rectangle tables, odd-shaped tables. Linens are one of my favorite things. I like texture, I like color, I like specialty seating. Though, if we got to use a folding chair, we're going to use the best folding chair that we can use. Then we decide what's on the table. Is it a centerpiece? Is it candles? Is it flowers? Is it a theme event? So you may have seen some of my parties. I've put food on tables. I've put school supplies on tables. I've sprayed things from the dollar store on tables. I've used pictures on tables. I've used things from nature on table. So you open up to a world of possibilities as a creative in that layer. Then decide, what's the activations, what's the entertainment. So we're looking at all of the senses. So I pull from my performing arts, being on stage background. So we're thinking about lighting, we're thinking about sound, and that may be, is there music? One of the senses that I'm encouraging more clients to consider is the sense of smell. What does your event smell like? I always reference a couple that was actually, the bride was one of my high school classmates. Her older sister sat behind me in homeroom, 11th grade, and she wanted to have a specific smell at her wedding. She wanted a cashmere candle, and she was very intentional about, we're gonna have cashmere candles. And Chris, I need to make sure that we got the plug-ins in the walls and that these scented candles are spaced evenly throughout the venue, because I want everyone to remember this wedding by this smell. And
now that is interesting, because often I don't ever think, like when I'm planning my own things, about thinking about smell. Like if it's a client, it's different because I think differently. But that's an interesting element to make sure that you include as you move forward.
Yes. So even when we're looking at linens, because it's kind of have to argue for a linen, because they was like, well, what's wrong with a white tablecloth? And I'm like, well, isn't this a little more special than going to a nice restaurant? Linens have different texture. You want velvet. I've pulled away from satin now, so I like things that are more velvety or silky. But back to the scent, because I want to tell the listeners how it actually came back. About maybe 3 or 4 years later, when we were planning my grandmother's 90th birthday party, and we just celebrated 95th birthday, I went into the venue to look at the space, and they had a cashmere plug-in, and I thought about her wedding immediately. And we weren't even there was no other reference to make me think about that wedding. And I smelled that cashmere plug-in, and to this day, if I smell cashmere, it's hers. It's hers. It's her scent. And then there's some florals that give off a very, very poignant, it's very potent scent, like lilies. Even though they're very beautiful, a few lilies go a long way. And when people are eating, they don't want your centerpiece competing with their food. So that's one of the things we have to consider. So after the design, then becomes the work, and that's the execution. And you really want to make sure that you have a strong plan for this to happen efficiently and in excellence. One of the things I pride myself is, punctuality, being a clear communicator, being available, serving our clients, following them throughout the evening, making sure that they have what they need. You probably won't see Chris or his team on the dance floor fraternizing with the guests. One, I think is very inappropriate, unprofessional, but we are there to serve the people, and we cannot monitor what's going on if we are at the party ourselves. So executing the plan and being there from start to finish. I'm very hands-on leader, so I work with the team. I am not barking orders and not doing the work. I'm in there with them. I'm sweating. We come in with t-shirts and we leave with a half suit, tennis shoes, whatever it is, get out, and I don't leave until the last vendor has left. So that's the model. That's my approach to events, and it's just like a very, very short production.
So your last statement led me into what was my next question. For people who might be watching that are interested in doing event planning or event design, how important are your vendor relationships?
Well, I don't care what industry that you work in, relationships are everything. I learned this from the very beginning when I was being introduced to the industry. Chandra, she and her husband own a linen company in Middle Georgia when my sister and were planning her wedding. And she kind of identified some skills with me. And so she pulled me to the side. She's like, "Come in, Chris, I want to talk to you." So she was like, "Tell me about this Christopher Morris, who's your bride and who's your target audience?" So she gave me a lot of information on how to present myself to potential clients, and also how to ensure that the proper vendor relationships are established from the very beginning, because your relationships with vendors and your client is your resume. Nobody cares what your Instagram looks like and your reviews are 2 stars. Because some people find out, oh, Chris is doing it, and they go to Yelp. They go say, well, let me see what Wedding Wire is saying, or what is his Facebook reviews saying, and they'll be like, oh, that was his aunt, or that was his mama. Let me find a real person, and they're talking about you, and they're looking for you, and they're looking to find the dirt. So those relationships are very important. Relationships are also very important because when you need a vendor to work for you or to work for your clients, they're able to do that because they trust you. They know that you're bringing them reputable work. And, you cannot get that by doing things half done or cutting corners or not upholding your word in delivering, and over delivery is something I strive to do. So I kind of hold back on, because your best is your next. I cannot rest on, okay, well, you remember I'm the one that did. Well, nobody care what you did last weekend. What you doing today? They want to know, what are you going to do for us today? We want to know what you want to do now. So, and it's also the pressure that comes with that, because most of the things that I'm involved with as a designer, especially these milestone events, because that's usually when people really want to invest in graphics, or an event is only going to happen one time. And you want to make sure that you're able to give them the best that you're able to offer at that one time, because they're not going to be able to do it the next 24 hours.
And I think you hit on 2 things that are very important, like you said, any career field, and that is trust and your reputation. I tell people all the time, and even when you were undergrad, I would tell people the hardest thing to recover from is a bad reputation.
Yes.
I think Leontine Price even said, like, you're only as good as your most recent review. And so I think your reputation is critical, especially in a service field like yours, where, like you said, people talk, especially us. And we are good to tell people when service is bad or when things did not go how we expected. So I'm glad you spoke on those. So if you're dealing with a client,
keep my own tea bags.
What'd you say?
I keep my own tea bags. Is what I call them. So I make sure everything is written down. You know, a lot of people like, well, call me. I don't like email me, text me, because we're going to go by what was written down, what was text, what was email, and I keep what I call tea bags in case I need to drop them in hot water and serve them back to make sure that it's clear, you know, this is what I communicated was going to be done. Don't say we said we want to do something and it's not done or you're not satisfied, because if we have to absorb a cost to make sure you're satisfied, I'm willing to do that. But that's not the MO, because we want to make sure that you understand what I'm bringing, what time I'm bringing, what I'm not bringing. I'm going to reiterate, we're not doing this. So that communication piece is very important. One of the mottos at the prep school was character above all. And as you stated, it's a life principle to carry throughout all that you do, because your word is as significant as your name. And I am very passionate about what I attach my name to. So if I said I'm going to do it, we're going to do it and put 110 on it.
So how do you deal with the client who, you know, I always say they have champagne taste with a plastic cup budget, but how do you deal with the clients who have these wonderfully extravagant ideas, and then when you get down to budgeting, you're like, we can do 25% of that. So how do you have those conversations with clients? How do you reel them in? How do you do that?
Well, I like to say that I don't make a move without being spirit-led, God-led, and I'm very upfront about that. And one of my prayers when I started this business is for God to remove any clients that will not appreciate who I am and what I do. So I just asked God to just divert them even before I started a business. So I've had very few people approach me that it wasn't a good fit. After they speak with me for about 5 or 10 minutes, they know, and they don't call back, and there's no love lost, because I'm very honest about money, because fiscal responsibility is something that Christopher Marx esteemed. I don't want you to spend any more than you're willing to spend, because I promise you, if you tell me what the budget is, I'm going to spend every last penny of it. And if you don't want to spend it, don't present it. If you can't afford it, we're going to find out one way or the other. But I teach against that, because the stress is going to be on you. I'm not going to be dealing with how's the rabbit going to come out the hat. That's going to be on you, because I'm going to tell you up front, you can't do that with that many people. If you want to do this, this is how you're going to do it. Or I'll be up front and just say you can't do that at all. And I'd rather you cry now and have the ooh, why at the front than we come to it and you disappointed and I have to do I told you so. My sister's one of my first references. I told her how to select a particular vendor for her event when she got married, and she chose otherwise. And she's one of my biggest advocates now for that particular area of the event, as also listening to me, because I'm just that honest. If I don't like it, I'm going to tell you. If I don't think it's going to work, I'm going to tell you. And if you are upset about that, one, you're going to get over it, or two, you're not.
And I think that I tell people all the time, even in the work that I do now, primarily, that you're hiring a professional for their expertise.
Yes,
So why would you not listen to the professional who has the expertise?
it
I
happens
just
all
did
the
an
time.
article. A consultant is supposed to be the expert. You're paying for the expert. So why would you hire them and then not listen to their advice?
Something. I mean, it happens all the time. And I had to present that point of view to a client recently, and I was very frustrated because I explained to her, that's why people call me. And one of the things kind of represents what you asked earlier. A lot of people are not aware of the number of people who call me, text me, and inbox me about who, what, where, when, how, and they're not even on our event schedule. And they are just reaching out to me because they trust me and my recommendations.
And it's the same even with higher ed. I get calls all the time when schools or places are considering people that I should probably professionally know. And I
Mhm.
have no involvement in your hiring process, but people will certainly call. And I mean, I do it. I've done it to you. I've asked you about people. I mean, that's just how people weed out the folks that they should not be dealing with.
Yes.
And that's why it goes back to what you said earlier. Your reputation is important. And everything I have seen, and I'm good for finding out the real deal. Everything I have found on your company is high end. And every so often you might have one or two people that could have liked something different. Well, that's just human nature. But from the production to the follow up, and even when you look at some of the photos, because you sent me some to review, the joy that's actually on the people's faces that are there. That speaks a whole lot that folks may never say to you. Because, I mean, and I'll just be honest, sure, it's my show, I can say what I want. Our people are not really good about telling you when they're happy, but they are really good at telling you when things are wrong. So when you can look at those photos and see genuine joy on people's faces, they'll probably never say anything to you, but that speaks volumes about the work you're doing.
So I wanted to say something to that because I never knew that my ministry focus would shift from serving students to serving everybody. Uh, and as self-contained teachers, we're given a population of students to serve throughout that year. And that's our reach for the moment, unless you're like me and I'm in everybody's business at the whole school. I'm in every teacher's classroom, and everybody that's in the school during that time while I'm there is my student as well, whether you're in my classroom or not. And what I discovered is that you will only serve so many students at that time. But when I design a graphic, when I present a program or a floral arrangement at a memorial service, it is instantly touching hundreds and thousands of people in that moment. I've had the opportunity to serve families of very just very high profile situation, and they are sending the work all over the country. I've worked with ministries in different countries, and they're able to. So I'm able to serve people and uh, just be an extension of service or servant leadership in a creative ministry. It doesn't look like a teacher at all until, when they call and ask questions and I have to hold their hand through the process, or helping people deal with grief or anxiety, or just understanding what is and what isn't, or what can't be, or what even will be. It's a ministry. So that connection and service to people is something very important to me. Uh, Being a vendor, contractor, servant in the death industry, as some people call it. Some of my friends call me funeral director because I'm in the funeral home just as much as they are. It's not a part that a lot of people see that Christopher Marks does, because I'm just working through what that looks like to ensure that that sanctity and that privacy is maintained, because it's a very, very sensitive part of people's life, and I don't want them to feel that I'm using their loved ones as an opportunity to expand my platform. But so we do that a lot. We do a lot of that work discreetly. You know, we pick it up from the printer, we deliver the flowers, and we step away. You don't see it. The people know it if they were there. If they don't, then you know, when it's time to serve you, we come. But we have to be on call. They may call you in the middle of the night, because that's when the guests have the setting up, because it's, you know, it's stressful. It's stressful, or they're dealing with the loss of a child or the loss of a spouse, and they're trying to come to grips with the grief while getting information that Chris needs to create a program, or even answer a question of, you know, what color do you want the flowers to be? And, you know, they're trying to come to. So you have to remain patient. You have to remain calm. And
I remember when my father passed, we had somebody helping us, because I mean, there were things I couldn't even think of. I was so stressed. You know, we were on Glee Club tour. So I was so out of it. I couldn't remember his favorite color. Like, none of the stuff that I should know. I couldn't think of his siblings' names. Like, all that stuff that normally I'm good with details. None of it was coming to me.
Wow.
And the person who was really there helping us was so critical, because I remember she was sitting there scribbling all this stuff on a sheet of paper. I don't know what I was saying, but somehow that got to something useful. But it speaks to what you're saying. It's a very, it's a challenging time, because you're lost someone, but you're still trying to be strong for other people, and you're trying to get this service done, because, you know, you don't want to be 3 weeks later. You know, this is a quick turnaround. And, you know, I mean, I think we went to see my dad. It was like 9:00 in the evening.
oh, wow.
So, I mean, it's a very critical thing, and I'm glad that that is a component that you do, whether people know or not, because it's really helpful to families, because you're not functioning in your right mind, regardless of what anybody wants to say, no matter how strong you are, especially when it's like abrupt. I mean, I don't know how people are dealing right now with this pandemic, with just the loss of abrupt life, just without even any of the closure that at least some of us get with being there in those final moments. So that's critical work that you're doing.
It's extremely difficult, and I'm just blessed and honored to be even considered to walk with these families, you know, through this some often challenging part of their life. And I keep everyone's number. So I'm thinking of them, and I'm led to reach out. I actually reach out to them. Sometimes they call me to see how I'm doing. Hopefully, you know, it's not to serve them again, but, you know, sometimes that does happen. But it's just, I think some of my philosophies dealing with end of life are just as strong or even stronger than they are for events, because having a brother who left us in the way that he did at such a very young age, and trying to ensure that dignity was maintained, because, you know, we weren't raised in a family where, you know, we on the news for being killed in the middle of the night. That's just not our story. You know, our parents sacrificed to make sure that we had the best that they could give us. We were in church weekly. We were in Bible school in the summer times. We were in baseball, the band, the chorus. You know, we didn't bring home F's. And if we did, we talked about them. You know, it wasn't, you know, I'm not signing this. I'm not going to work, and you can't go to school and do your work. So my philosophies for end of life celebrations were shaped immediately, because I wanted to ensure that this was done in a manner to ensure that regardless of how my brother left or what type of life you all think he had or led, this will be dignified and it will be done in excellence. And I ensure that, my family are treated the same way. And God sends me those people because they see it in the work. They see the care. And in the pages. It's in the pages. Now, I wish, I can't wait for the opportunity to share more of that with you, because I'm able to just memorialize people in a very, very, very special way. And I thank God for that opportunity.
So Mark Coley, who is a consultant, he does a lot of business development. He's mentoring entrepreneurs and all that stuff. He is always talking about charging what you're worth. So, that's always challenging when you start doing something. How did you get to the point where you're like, this is what it is? Either you can take it or leave it. I am finally there with my consulting work. But, it was challenging when I started. I know this is what I'm valued at. So how did you get to the point where you were okay and like, the people going to do it or not?
I'm getting there. I'm at a place where I'm comfortable with where my rates are. And I've kind of always felt that I was always satisfied. I was content. And that was something that in that conversation with Chandra and some of the veterans that I met initially, because, I didn't want them passing around my name as the magician, because I like nice stuff. So when these people come to me with these budgets, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, is that all we have? I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can I make like $1 million? And I think a lot of people would be probably most surprised with how much some of our events cost, because, like I said, fiscal responsibility is something that I esteem. Being based in a smaller market is something that I had to master, just because the budgets for events in a smaller city are not the same as a larger city. So what a client is able to pay in Macon, where Christopher Marks was born, is not the same that a client is able to pay in Atlanta or a much larger market. A small ministry, we service small ministries in different places, is not able to afford the same for a marketing campaign. So I understand that that's considered. I'm flexible. It's a key. It's a key to leadership flexibility. So I'm really I'm firm, but I'm fair. I stated this is ministry, and I believe in seed sowing, and you have to just assess who we're working with, and if you see that it's worth investment, you give a little. One of I say this, I've written about it. All of my work in 2020 came from planting a seed. It came from planting a seed. A planner called me to an event, and I just came because I was, just getting back, needed to work, and I was like, I want to work with this planner. Well, little did I know, the seed that I needed to plant was not with the one that called me, but somebody else who was there. And I planted a seed with that particular, we call them frienders, but I can call this person a friend. And all of the work that I had for 2020 stemmed from that one connection.
And I'm glad you brought that up. So event planning in the middle of a pandemic just seems like let's just pack it up and go home because this is not going to happen. So how has the pandemic impacted you? How have you overcome it? And, even some of the things that you've done to be successful, because, in direct service industries where we run our businesses, it is not easy in a regular time. So how have you been surviving during this period?
Well, so many people weren't clearly aware, unless they were close to me, that for the event seasons 2018, 2019, I was actually living in Northwest Indiana. I was the chief of staff at a ministry in the south suburbs of Chicago. And I was working there as the chief of staff. And I was at the church probably 6 days a week. Some of the members like, every time I'm here, Chris, you're here. And I'm like, I'm supposed to be. If I had so many keys, and the same level of excellence that I wanted for these events is what I was working for at this church. But simultaneously, I was taking leads for jobs in Georgia. And I had a full calendar, especially 2018. Some weekends I was on a plane every weekend. And when I got finished in Georgia, I flew back to be in service the next day. So I was very intentional about being in the people's face while I was gone for 2 years. And while I was being intentional about being in their face, I was kind of vanishing from the people's faces in Georgia. So once I was led to come back, everything shut down. And I was like, ooh. But fortunately, I only had one event on the calendar. Yeah, I went from having a full calendar to one event. And that wedding is actually going to take place at the end of May. So we rescheduled that wedding. I didn't have to reschedule anything because the calendar was clear. And I knew that my industry was kind of like, they don't need events, and who needed graphics right now, because everybody is learning how they're going to navigate this pandemic. So I sat back, I told one of my classmates, not my classmates, one of my team members, team friends, that, I'm coming back. I know you're about to enter this PhD program. You let me know if you need anything. So they offered me a job. I was like, okay, I wasn't really thinking about going to, work for anybody, especially like that. Looked at that schedule, like 9 to 6, Jesus. I was like, well, I may have to step out to do some Christmas market. It's like, that's okay. I just really need you right now, Mr. Graddick. I'm like, okay. I'm actually working with an education consultant as things began to kind of pick up. So I kind of feel like I'm at the church again and trying to run Christmas Mart. I just don't have to fly between 600-700 miles and drive from Atlanta to Macon and execute and pull. I am so grateful for my current supervisor and just them allowing me to kind of manage it all. So that was a way that I was able to manage. I just put on another hat. And that's the benefit of having a very diverse skill set. I'm able to work in many capacities. Even before I left to go work in Chicago, I was serving in music ministry. I was just accompanying, and I just love that because I have to teach in the music. Just what's the song? What's the key? Be ready for the rehearsal. I got it. I mean, I can accompany. I just love that. So if I need to work, the opportunities are there. I am just very fortunate to just be paid for doing things that I really, really love to do. So
and it has to be a good feeling. And it has to be a good feeling when you're wanted. I mean, the fact that people are calling you up, offering you things, that just speaks to your reputation again and your work ethic. Because people are not out here throwing jobs at folks. right now. And so, I mean, that just speaks to, you know, what the reputation that you have built, just not just in your industry, but across the board. So as we're in our final moments, what are some final thoughts that you would like to share with our guests?
Well, I'm not sure who's listening, and I'm not sure who will hear this later, but Christopher Marks Design has a very, very intentional name. One of my philosophies is every decision is a detail. So I don't like to move something, choose something without reason. So, you know, if we're going to discuss a graphic, let's know that, you know, I'm going to tell you why that was done before we make a change. You know, I do want to ensure that you're satisfied, but I did this for a reason. I chose this color for a reason. I chose this font for a reason. This picture is placed here for a reason. You don't know that, but you know it now. And then once you know it, you can decide if you want to choose differently. So one of my philosophies that has been throughout my life, even before Christopher Marks, was a thought, an idea, a manifestation, was to have very intentional encounters. I want to ensure that if I have been with you or a lifetime with you, that you will remember having met me. And I want to encourage anyone who's listening to do that in all that they do. You know, as students of Morehouse, we are familiar with the words of former President Mays: whatever you do, strive to do it so well that no man living, no man dead, or no man yet to be born can do it better. And that is done by identifying why you were made. And purpose is something that I love to speak to. So whoever's listening, wherever they are, however they are, I want you to identify that which encourages you, inspires you to wake up every day and to keep living, to keep working, to keep striving, to keep dreaming. Once you put your hand on that, water it, it will grow. I don't care where it's planted. It's why you are here, it's why you exist, it's why you breathe. You are significant, you matter, and you are the difference.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. This has really been enjoyable, and I have learned a lot too. And I will speak to your graphic design work. You know, you've done projects with me that I've never seen until they were printed. But you know,
I didn't know that.
Huh?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, you remember one of those journals for that organization I used to manage, you know, I never saw it. The first time I saw it was when you drove it to the hotel at like 1:30 in the morning. But, you know, but I know your work ethic, so I'm never worried about anything. I just let it all work out.
That has never happened again. That has never happened again. I have learned so much collaborating with you, and I'm so grateful that our paths crossed when they did, because I'm not sure if it would have happened like that if other things had happened in your life specifically. So I'm grateful. I am truly grateful.
Well, you know, you kind of stuck with me now as long as the Lord has me here on the planet. So, you know, I'm good for sending a text and be like, are you free? But thank you so much for being on the show. You know, I'm sure a lot of people watch this afterwards. It will be posted. Don't go anywhere, Chris. Let me end the show and I'll be right back with you.
Thank you. You all have a good evening.
So I hope everyone enjoyed that show. You know, we gained a lot of information, not just about events, but about, as he said, living your purpose, making sure that you have a reputation, you know, that speaks to what you do and your branding and things. So I'm just so glad we had that time. You know, this will be up on our Facebook and YouTube channels. Share it with people. Have them watch it as well. If you are an aspiring event planner, reach out to me and I will try to get you connected with Chris as his schedule permits. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. And Saturday at 10 a.m., I am going to be interviewing and having a conversation with HBCU queens from many of our schools across the country. And then at 1 p.m. on Saturday, I am going to be having a similar conversation with some of our HBCU kings. So make sure you tune in for that. And before we go, just once again, Make sure you follow me on my social media. That's Dr. Woodson 2020 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And if you are interested in helping us do the work that we do on Dean Talk and from the desk of the Dean, make sure that you contact us regarding sponsorship opportunities or how you can help, be it financial, be it services, be it time. You can email the team at info@rwaynewoodson.com. I look forward to seeing all of you on future episodes. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for viewing. Talk to you soon.